Disclaimer: do not send any type of harassment or negativity towards the creators that I review. This includes hateful comments, mass paying the creators, dislike spamming, and toxic videos about them. This video is for edutainment purposes, and even then, what I say could be wrong, so please take my videos with a grain of salt. Enjoy! Hello, once again, GOJI Center. We're going to be watching your video once again, and it's going to be in the description, so have a review yourself before watching this. Anyways, enjoy.
Today, the battle arena will witness two of the most iconic predators in history clash in a battle that will determine who is the superior Rex.
Superior t.rex REXY versus Sue. Will it be the artificial creation of Jurassic Park InGen stuff that is mostly used for show, or just nature, which is a bit more practical, yet still has a bunch of flaws?
On one end, the relentless predator that does not take no for an answer, with feared reputation and queen of Isla Nublar, Jurassic's REXY. On the other hand, a well-known predator proved to be a battle-hardened warrior, with an imposing build making it one of the largest Cretaceous predators ever found.
So from what I've heard of, it's going to have slight problems in the video, but anyway.
Sue, the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
The thing about GOJI Center is that GOJI Center tends to focus more on realism and not really power scaling. So, there's that.
Everything we know about these two animals will be compared 1-to-1, pitting their weapons, mass, and physical abilities to determine which one of these Rexes will win in a face-off. Who wins and who falls defeated. This is T-Rex versus T-Rex. Killer versus killer.
Yes. REXY is gonna be roaring.
Who will win?
Or Sue is just gonna be hissing, bellowing, and stuff.
Find out at the end on Monster Face Off. This face off will.
So, basically, REXY is taller, while Sue is, well, much more bulky.
Will involve both the most famous dinosaur in cinema and the best studied dinosaur of all time. Although seemingly similar, both paleontological evidence and feats seen on screen differ greatly. Even the slightest nuance will be taken into account to reveal who takes the edge in each category. At the end, we'll bear witness to a simulation pitting both of these animals and how they would react and deal with upon seeing each other for the first time.
I mean, they both are fairly similar. REXY is going to be...
With that in mind,
REXY seems to be more provocative.
Let's move on to the first attribute. Mass.
Sue will probably take this one.
It goes without saying that Tyrannosaurus Rex had the most robust build out of any of the land predators in Earth's history. Every rendition of the T-Rex in the past, regardless of their paleo accuracy, is portrayed to be a powerful dinosaur with an imposing physique. REXY was no different. Her design in the films is largely adherent to the Tyrannosaurus as it was known in the 1980s, and the design portrayals of said dates. More specifically, the T-Rex specimen in the American Natural History Museum. REXY, for her film debut, had very large feet, very skinny legs, a thin torso, and blocky face with skin that is shrink-wrapped to the skeleton.
Well, shrink-wrapped to the skeleton. Back then, the stuff were going to be more exaggerated, and that was commonly accepted in paleontology at the time, but now it's not really the case. Obviously, that wasn't in the 90s, so I'm gonna have to accept that.
Specimen, according to Dr. Thomas Carr, died out around the age of 26 and is estimated to have weighed 7 to 7.5 tons. This one had a taller build than many other Rexes, which does translate to REXY, who has a height of up to 18 feet depending on posture. In today's battle simulation, and for the sake of fairness, we'll study REXY at her prime. Her weight did fluctuate in the movies, being horribly skinny in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and visibly bulking up again in Jurassic World Dominion.
It's a bit inconsistent. Whatever.
To get the most accurate weight metric possible, the GOJI Center research team will resort to volumetric analysis.
Alright. Actually, I kind of need to study volumetric analysis. I currently have exams that are going to be there soon, so I can't really study it that much, but that's whatever. That's just a whatever.
using a three-dimensional model of Rexy and scaling her to adult proportions. The end result being an animal weighing in at close to 8.86 tons. How will the paleo-accurate Sue compare? This was first known about around the year 1990, but wasn't studied until after Jurassic Park came out. At that point, Sue became easily one of the most understood T-Rex skeletons of all time. That, in addition to being one of the oldest, having lived at least in her late 20s, if not early 30s. A T-Rex who survives this long would have been exceptionally large, which was the case for this animal.
Sue is definitely, as you can see, Rexy is 8.86.
Weighing in at close to 8.86 tons.
8.86 tons. Well, that is actually fine here.
How will the paleo-accurate Sue compare?
I think Sue will probably be a bit heavier than Rexy. Therefore, Sue's gonna be
This was
bigger.
first known about with a T-Rex who survives this long would have been exceptionally large, which was the case for this animal. New understanding of T-Rex now reveals that Sue was actually in the highest percentile when it came to size, with a...
Oh. Okay. I think I was wrong back then.
Other specimens like Scotty being the one other well-studied specimen in the same size class.
Sue and Scotty, guys. So, could we have a battle between Sue and Scotty? Hold on, we're gonna make a poll. From what I remember, though, Scotty is heavier than Sue, and Scotty is not even the biggest specimen. That title belongs to... Is it Cope, or is it someone else? No, it's not even Cope anymore. It's Goliath, not Cope.
Sue is still easily way above average for a Tyrannosaurus.
It seems like I can't even create a poll because the phone just refuses to allow me to even create a poll. It just says error a zillion times now.
Because
So I just turned off the freaking phone.
her skeleton is so complete, we can use volumetric analysis on her body to get a better idea of how massive she could have been. This was possible thanks to our friends at EoFauna, a team formed by researchers, creatives, and specialists focused on prehistoric fauna, who produce high-detailed and paleo-accurate models of several prehistoric creatures, such as Giganotosaurus, Ankylosaurus, the Paleoloxodon, and, of course, one of Sue. Using the most up-to-date skeletal reconstructions, EoFauna created the most accurate model of Sue possible at 1/35 scale. EoFauna provided GOJI Center with a 3D model of this specific T-Rex specimen to step into the analysis platform and square off against REXY later. The results of the volumetric analysis later. Step into the analysis platform and square off against REXY later.
Problem over here is that Rexy doesn't seem that much taller than Sue, when in reality, Sue should definitely be noticeably shorter. So that's a little problem that it's going to appear in the later segments of the video. But anywho,
the results of the volumetric analysis place Sue in ranks much higher than previously estimated, which in the 90s was around 6 tons. But a more accurate volumetric survey by Dan Folks instead puts Sue at well over 10 tons.
Dan Folks! Man, the dude actually got a mention from a channel with over 1 million subscribers. That's really cool. Yeah, I can't even create a poll. We weren't able to add your post. It's just absolutely crazy.
And potentially breaking 11. Sue compared to REXY had a much higher volume despite being shorter. Generally speaking, Sue is about 20% more massive than REXY at her highest weight estimate. Don't let this profile fool you. The volume difference is more noticeable up front, which will be the angle REXY will be looking at the most during their encounter. The skull of Sue is longer and thicker, the torso is more robust, and the tail noticeably has more mass. REXY is a few feet taller than Sue depending on her posture, and to her proportionally long legs, Her 4-foot length advantage is really due to a longer tail. So, who takes the edge? In this category, the one who takes the edge is the one with the most weight and weight distribution advantage. In this case, being taller and lighter is going to give Rexy a higher center of gravity compared to Sue, meaning Sue will be much harder to topple over in a wrestling match. It will be Sue who will be likely to make the opponent take steps backward. In this category, Sue takes the edge for mass. But longer and taller will
Sue is going to
prove to have other benefits.
That means Rexy is going to be able to reach Sue's neck a bit easier, given how both Rexy and Sue are built.
Number 2, reach. In this particular battle scenario between two of the same species, that being a species of animal that regularly got into fights with one another, we need to consider reach. The winner of this edge will determine who is more likely to strike first and more regularly. Many T-Rex skeletons, including that of Rexy, show evidence of a myriad of bite marks and battle scars on the skull. This, amongst other findings, suggests that T-Rex relied on its skull as its primary offensive weapon. Based on this information, we can expect the simulation to show two T-Rexes facing each other at all times and wrestling head-on in order to be able to reach the most vulnerable areas.
Rexy has more.
Based on this information, we can expect the simulation to show two T-Rexes facing each other at all times and wrestling head-on in order to be able to reach the most vulnerable areas. For this battle approach to work in favor of one contestant, body parts such as elongated torso and neck will be favorable. If we look at how Rexy was designed in Jurassic Park, we do notice an elongated neck. That and the fact that Rexy at her prime is actually 10% longer than Sue.
And Rexy is longer and taller.
Part of this would be the
It doesn't seem like Rexy is taller here. That's one problem that a bunch of the power scaling community pointed out here.
extended tail, however, but a good...
As you can see here, it doesn't seem like Rexy is taller. Rexy's neck over here is taller, but her hips are not, which is a little bit of a problem.
Chunk was at the torso and neck, meaning that in a head-on collision, Rexy, in combination with her height, would have her jaws positioned to bite Sue's body sooner. And her being quick on her feet means exploiting this reach will be easier. Sue does
But Rexy's not extremely agile.
have a proportionally longer skull. Her wide lower stance will make accessing points like Rexy's legs and arms easier as they are lower to the ground. But this does come at the cost of exposing the back of the neck and back muscles to Rexy. In most of the head-on encounters, Rexy should be able to have more opportunities to strike thanks to her longer reach and ability to rear up a bit higher than Sue. How potent the weapons are is another matter, but it does mean that the first hit will probably be inflicted by the InGen creation, Edge Rexy.
Okay, that's fair enough, I suppose.
Number 3, speed. For two large animals that will be fighting in close proximity, the use of speed will be important when winding up a charge or trying to pull a tactical retreat. In combat, the ability to withdraw at will is vital. The exact science on how fast a T-Rex can go has been debated back and forth, and is still debated today. The lighter reconstruction of T-Rex in the 90s and less precise measurement systems gave it the 25 to 35 mile per hour estimate. Consequently, Rexy was also given a speed within these parameters.
So, Rex Hammond, well, we clocked the T-Rex at 32 miles an hour. Okay. That's cool.
Now, granted, this speed wasn't really showcased on screen, and also note that this recorded speed was taken from a T-Rex who wasn't fully grown, especially since we saw this same T-Rex break the scales at 44 feet in length upon maturing. Still, however, InGen T-Rexes would be able to maintain a top speed of over 30 miles per hour, and we can see this play out in games such as Jurassic World Evolution.
Jurassic World Evolution. Man, Jurassic World Evolution definitely is not the best when it comes into accuracy. Jurassic Park Operation Genesis actually did quite a better job here. Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, everything was actually random, and hadrosaurs were not actually defenseless fodder.
showcasing the narrow-framed T-Rex performing running gaits when moving at top speed. Various InGen clones such as the Buck seen in The Lost World and Big and Little Edie were seen moving at a fast pace close to 30 miles per hour. Even REXY in Fallen Kingdom and Dominion was actually able to keep pace with a moving helicopter. It does seem that REXY will require enough open space to build up her top speed instead of reaching it right away. For real-life T-Rexes like Sue, things were a little different. Since Sue turned out to be a lot heavier than initially thought, the estimated top speed was reduced considerably for a big T-Rex. During its adolescent years, Tyrannosaurus would have been exceptionally fast before it put on a lot of bulk, trading speed for sheer size as it grew.
See, juvenile T-Rexes were known to be excellent pursuit predators because they had to hunt the smaller herbivores of their environment, like the Pachycephalosaurus and Ornithomimus. Larger ones will be the ones that hunted Monosaurus and Triceratops and Ankylosaurus.
Sue at her prime would be nowhere near as fast as she was when she was a teenager. The study of more updated models places the speed of 13 to 15 miles per hour for her size and age. This metric is still arguable. For instance, paleontologist and research director at EOFauna, Esier Laramendi, developed a mathematical equation for estimating theropod speed. In Sue's case, the initial calculation was 25 kilometers per hour, but was likely too conservative because the body mass boundary was too low. It was speculated that 35 kilometers per hour was more realistic. For comparison, that would be the top speed of a fit person running a 100-meter dash in 12 seconds. Estimates may change, but this is just to show Sue's top speed hasn't been set in stone yet. T-Rex legs were better for faster paced movement than those of an elephant, and these animals already reach 25 kilometers per hour. So this is why many paleontologists speculate that animals like Sue could fast walk at higher speeds. Truth be told, there's absolutely no real reason for these two animals to be running at full sprint during the majority of the fight, instead of reaching it right away, such as Jurassic World models places the speed of 13 to 15 miles per hour for.
So Sue is going to have 13 to 15 miles per hour. We're getting okay. We're working with whatchamacallit. Oh my god, I can't even say anything. I give up. I actually forgot what I'm trying to say here. Jeez. I don't know why, but I just seem to forget everything.
For her size and age, this metric is still arguable. For instance, paleontologist and research director at EOFauna, Esier Laramendi, developed a mathematical equation for estimating theropod speed.
With Sue is going to be slower than REXY
When ramming or running away. In this fight, REXY will have the best chance to pull off a retreat quicker if things turn south, and move to better terrain if the environment allows it. For this category, REXY takes the edge in speed.
Okay. Obviously, look at this. REXY, this depiction of T-Rex is just, look at the looks of REXY and Sue over here, right?
Number 4, agility.
Sue should be able to take this one. REXY isn't exactly the most agile T-Rex that we've seen.
More important than speed when locked into close-quarter combat, the winner of this edge will have a critical advantage when it comes to targeting vital areas and getting around the opponent. The InGen Tyrannosaurus have been regularly outflanked, even by larger dinosaurs. In the midst of combat, they tend to rapidly step around in order to change position and direction. Despite being smaller and lighter, the bull from JP3 had a hard time staying atop the Spinosaurus, and Big Edie from Camp Cretaceous was roughly comparable against the same foe. This is in stark contrast to the real thing. It is actually possible that some of the large predators in the same size class as T-Rex could run faster, but this comes with a trade-off: maneuverability.
Carnosaurs, Giganotosaurus, they are likely going to run faster than the T-Rex. And the T-Rex is known to be slow, so not surprising there. But in terms of that, the Giga and the Carnosaur are likely not as agile as a Tyrannosaurus Rex, given that they're both carnosaurs. Meanwhile, T-Rex is a Coelurosaurian. It's a gigantic Coelurosaurian.
We've discussed the specifics of Tyrannosaur hip anatomy before, but this advantage cannot be understated. T-Rex shares common ancestors with Coelurosaurs like birds and raptors, those who climbed trees and made their way through thick forests, while at the same time the ancestors of giant carnosaurs like Spinosaurus and the Giga were roaming open spaces. In this case, Sue's hip anatomy is much more optimized for agility than speed. To put this very simply, if a dinosaur's anatomy has better muscles and bones for speed, this means that there is a deficit on agility. In contrast, legs built to help maintain stamina but also change direction quickly have to sacrifice rigidity for agility. Whatever InGen did to increase their T-Rex speed might have compromised some of their agility. This is why even a fully grown Tyrannosaurus could make a 180-degree pivot on a single foot, being capable of rapidly changing direction.
Rapidly changing direction. The figure skating is a little bit questionable as well, but this one is a bit more realistic.
This is why even a fully grown Tyrannosaurus could make a 180-degree pivot on a single foot, being capable of rapidly changing direction.
As you can see here, this is definitely much more realistic than the T-Rex versus Spinosaurus fight. And Sue is known to be very agile, as was any accurate Rex for that matter.
For comparison, note that the same study that found T-Rex to be as agile as it was gave it a score of about 2 to 2.5 times higher than that of Giganotosaurus, despite T-Rex being heavier. In Jurassic World, REXY was only roughly as agile as the Giga in Dominion, despite it being noticeably heavier. In this upcoming battle simulation, the extraordinarily fast animal will witness how surprisingly agile its ancestor actually was.
Its ancestor... Well, not really its ancestor, because REXY is a human creation. Meanwhile, Sue is just a product of Mother Nature herself. And so we can't really say Sue is REXY's ancestor. GOJI Center probably used the prologue Rex as a metaphor for Sue.
For this category, Sue takes the edge for agility. Number 5, senses. It's now time to discuss the battle attribute that will allow one of these to be able to lock into the opponent, but more importantly, who can spot the other first. This helps with setting up surprise attacks or making hiding useless if one of them decides to run away. Both animals have extremely good senses of smell, which means ambushing the other by pure scent protection is an even game, and would rely more on who would be able to position themselves upwind, or just make less noise before they're spotted. The thick pads on Sue's feet and the ability for her to pick up on low-frequency sounds would make it easy for Sue to pick up on REXY's booming footsteps.
Obviously, REXY is known for being not the quietest T-Rex that we've seen. This woman, that T-Rex, whatever, that T-Rex is just constantly roaring and all that. Courtesy of the Jurassic Park stuff. Why does people okay, they constantly roar. These dinosaurs constantly roar because they don't have very good vision, courtesy to the frog DNA.
In contrast to her own, which makes her almost undetectable to the ear. For actual fighting, however, the main concern would be the eyesight, and this is where things can get tricky. The eyesight of Sue and REXY may initially seem similar, but there's more than meets the eye here. Sue would have a 55-degree field of binocular vision and a highly developed fovea. REXY, on the other hand, due to her eye orientation and broadened snout, would have less binocular vision than Sue. This does mean that REXY would have a wider range of vision than Sue. REXY's eyesight does have an infamous drawback that we must mention.
Frog DNA, right? Is it because of the frog DNA that is added in to fill in the gaps?
In the Jurassic franchise, the concept of whether or not a T-Rex can see stationary objects has gone back and forth. Putting it all together, the answer might be that they can see stationary objects, but would key in on moving targets a whole lot more. This lack of precise vision might also explain why InGen T-Rexes in many situations in the franchise tend to flail about, attacking anything they can reach instead of focusing on potential weak spots that would end the battle much quicker.
Well, that is also the Indominus 2.0. And the Indominus 2.0, courtesy of the short-tail shrew, is actually going to be quite reckless. And because of all the adrenaline rush, the Indominus 2.0 is going to be extremely reckless and not really able to go after the weak spots as much as GOJI said.
And let's be real, with that kind of bite, T-Rex would end all fights very fast. But in many cases, they didn't. They just try to bite down and bash anything they can get in striking range. This also suggests a less than optimal degree in depth perception. Sue, meanwhile, like most real-life Tyrannosaurus, had superb vision, and especially perception. As stated in a presentation by Dr. Thomas Holtz, a key reason why T-Rex had a good depth perception might have been in part adapting to dodge retaliation attacks from very directional-oriented opponents like Triceratops, where you have to get around the horns to avoid getting hurt and injure the prey animal.
Triceratops' build doesn't really work with the Indominus 2.0. Because the Indom 2.0 could literally grab the Triceratops' horns and use its head to slam the Triceratops repeatedly until the Triceratops gives in and dies. Because all of its internal organs ruptured because the Indom 2.0 just casually just throws it around. Even though it's the same weight class, the Indom 2.0's arms are extremely strong.
So, knowledge of where the critical points are isn't going to do you much good if you don't have the ability to accurately hit them. Her wide field of vision would allow REXY to not be snuck up on by other animals, but at the cost of precision. Sue has the entire fossil record speaking in her favor, with plenty of fossils showing evidence that T-Rex would bite the tail to disable locomotive muscles, restraining the frill of a Triceratops to avoid getting gored, or controlling the face of another T-Rex to avoid getting bit. REXY's more maniac strategy, because of her senses, would probably land more hits, but Sue would likely be targeting critical points. For this category, the edge will go to Sue. Number 6, experience. This may seem like an odd thing to quantify, but if we're going to compare an animal that lived in the wild in a natural ecosystem with regular growth patterns and a wide variety of opponents to a bioengineered creature growing in an artificial ecosystem, then yes, discussing this attribute is a must. There's a number 6, experience. Patterns and a wide variety of opponents.
I feel like Sue is probably going to have more experience because REXY is just a human creation. Meanwhile, Sue is actually exists in the wild and just constantly had to hunt a bunch of monosaurs and triceratops and all that.
With tons of valuable
well, not really constantly. It's just whatchamacallit. It's just that Sue, when she has to hunt, when she's hungry, she's gonna have to hunt, and she's gonna have to go after strong herbivores like Triceratops and Monosaurus and Ankylosaurs.
Experience under her belt, the most important being encounters with other predators and prey. Remnant evidence of this is the myriad of healed battle scars and injuries on the face and body showing old wounds, infections, and healed fractures. Broken ribs that healed might have come from hunts or fights with other tyrannosaurs. If we take into account the type of dinosaurs that Sue hunted down, compare them with those that REXY had to encounter on a regular basis, we'll see that there is a difference in the type of dangers both had to encounter. Better adept and larger quantity of ceratopsians, hadrosaurs that dwarfed the pathetic miniature-sized Parasaurolophus and Oranosaurus from Nublar, and higher number of T-Rex encounters than REXY ever had.
Gigantic hadrosaurs and dangerous ceratopsians. These hadrosaurs, they are just defenseless meat sacks, instead of the actual Monosaurus, which is just extremely powerful.
Both had to
That is why I use the Monosaurus as the base, by the way.
encounter better, adept, and larger quantity of ceratopsians, hadrosaurs that dwarfed the pathetic miniature-sized Parasaurolophus and Ouranosaurus from Nublar, and higher number of T-Rex encounters than REXY ever had. Fossils of several prey animals, including one of a T-Rex, show that the tail was a primary target. One of the most popular findings in T-Rex research was that of the infamous Y-Rex, a T-Rex specimen that was found with part of its tail missing. The common consensus being that it was probably another T-Rex that bit it off, suggesting that animals like Sue would consider this body part as a target and a way to handicap another rival predator, hindering mobility in the future.
There we go.
An animal as old as Sue would have had an opportunity to inflict these countermeasures against other T-Rexes more frequently.
And Sue is also just, Sue is also gigantic, especially even for a T-Rex, so Sue always has the advantage.
Whereas REXY couldn't. REXY, throughout her life, has faced a much lesser amount of larger theropods. It is important to mention now that REXY is legendarily aggressive. Almost every single time she encountered another large carnivore, not of her own kind, her instinct was to attack it. Even when the dinosaur is physically bigger than her, she still rushes it. And every single time, she ended up losing.
Man, REXY has so much plot armor at this point. REXY is just...
This also translates when it hunts. Unlike the real animal, REXY seems to be very noisy and reckless.
Yes. And in real life, it would be extremely detrimental, given how predator-prey relations work in real life, given how predation works in real life. REXY is very bad at ambushing.
It was only after her later years when we saw her make smarter decisions, like backing off when facing a superior animal like Biosyn's modified Giga. This, however, was knowledge that would have been acquired by Sue much earlier in her lifetime. While Sue would have spent most of her life out in the wild growing up amidst other deadly herbivores and rival T-Rexes, REXY would spend the same span of time in an enclosure with goats as the main entree. For this category, the clear edge will go to Sue for combat experience. Number 7, intelligence. Before we compare these crushing bite forces, let's try to figure out who would have a better chance of figuring out the opponent's intentions and weaknesses faster than the other. InGen T-Rexes show pretty advanced intelligence, especially when coupled with others of their own kind or by themselves. Jurassic Rex's behavior inclines slightly towards the emotional realm. One example is how she willfully didn't attack Blue after the Indom was dealt with. Whether this was out of respect or appreciation for the raptor, or REXY simply being pragmatic is
or tired as well. That falls under pragmatic. REXY being tired.
Debatable. But consider how this same thing happened when Therizinosaurus showed up to attack the Giga. Here, REXY chose to not attack the Therizinosaurus afterwards. Again, whether this was a form of respect or just simply self-preservation.
But self-preservation, though. These animals, Jurassic World animals, do have a little bit of self-preservation, but not nearly as much as, say, real-life animals.
It still proves that REXY has moments where she can make good decisions. Rexes in this franchise are quite vengeful and will look to get payback given the opportunity, such as the grudge that laid waste to parts of San Diego after the Buck's offspring was taken from him, or Big Edie looking for a rematch after the Spino initially took her down.
And Big Edie also with Little Edie.
Back to REXY, we see her constantly use the environment to her advantage, such as bashing the Indom into buildings after realizing that just biting down wasn't really working, and figuring out that throwing the Giga into another opponent, one with really pointy weapons that is, would likely end bad for the Giga. And it sure as hell was. Actions such as testing the electric fence before proceeding to knock it all the way down are all examples that REXY, like the other InGen creations, were some of the smartest animals in this franchise.
Okay, T-Rexes are definitely known to be smart, and I guess REXY is one of the smarter ones out of all the dinosaurs. T-Rexes, though, probably a bit above average.
These are all feats seen on camera, but what about those of a specimen that died 66 million years ago? Figuring out the intelligence of an already extinct animal is difficult. Methods such as brain-to-body ratios in certain animals have already been proven to be inaccurate in some cases.
Oh, okay.
Especially
You learn something new every day.
when it comes to birds and reptiles. Being bird-brained per se is actually kind of a compliment, as these modern dinosaurs have typically extremely dense neuron networks in their brains despite them being small. Larger animals tend to have proportionally smaller brains, and is led on the stereotype idea that dinosaurs, especially the really big ones, are dumb. T-Rex had one of, if not the largest brain of all dinosaurs, both in absolute terms and just relative to its size. Social behaviors are one of the only concrete pieces of evidence we have, with more evidence of T-Rex cooperating with each other than what we have of raptors. This, along with a fairly lengthy growth stage and not reaching full size until 20 years old, this means that they had more time to learn by both experience and watching individuals from their own group. Not all T-Rexes growing up would have made it to adulthood. A common trait of infantile behavior is recklessness, so there would be cases in which a less intelligent Rex would get itself killed
Causing the other two Rex to just back away, simply.
in front of another T-Rex who surely won't make the same mistake again. Sue probably being one of them. T-Rex
Alright. As you can see here. Some T-Rexes can be extremely reckless and have little self-preservation instincts, causing them to literally get gored, or just crushed, or just, whatchamacallit, the ankylosaur tail slapped and
cases in which a less intelligent Rex would get itself killed in front of another T-Rex who surely won't killed. Cases in which a less intelligent Rex would get itself killed in front of another T-Rex who surely won't make the same mistake again. Sue probably being one of them. T-Rex bites to the horns and frill of Triceratops, tail of Edmontosaurus, and face of Ankylosaurs shows these predators knew how to disable prey effectively by both avoiding their weapons and minimizing the chance of getting hurt. The common and face one of them. T-Rex bites to the horns and frill of Triceratops, tail of Edmontosaurus.
The tail of Monosaurus is also fairly dangerous, despite just not really looking like it has a weapon. It's a weapon at all. It's very powerful. It's a very powerful tail that can be swung at some
effectively by both avoiding their weapons and minimizing the chance of getting hurt. The common estimate accepted amongst many scientists has it that T-Rex was as intelligent as many modern predators, such as large cats and birds of prey. All of these animals do show the vengeful traits that were seen in the InGen Rexes, who do share complex affection and care for each other. For this category, a fair level of intelligence is an attribute equally present in both of these animals, making this a draw in intelligence.
T-Rex is definitely more intelligent than most other theropods of its size class, its weight class, but
Now, let's get
not really as intelligent as a chimp.
to the bloody business. Number 8, bite effectiveness. Now it's time to delve into the legendary bite force that established T-Rex as the sovereign apex land predator of all time. Furthermore, this fight will feature two very similar bite forces, but the damage inflicted isn't entirely identical. Both tyrannosaurs have. This fight will feature two very similar bite forces, but the sized jaws and teeth. Very similar bite forces, but the damage inflicted isn't entirely identical. Both tyrannosaurs have roughly comparable sized jaws and teeth. Depending on how many teeth make contact, the PSI metric for the bite force could vary wildly, but averaged between 8K to 10K PSI. Because both InGen and real T-Rex have, on paper, similar biting forces, the main focus of this section and what will determine who has the most effective bite will be the slight nuances in the shape of the teeth.
Sue's stuff are actually thick. Sue's teeth are actually thick. They're very much used for crunching.
The narrower, more
Rexys, though, are given sort of Carcharodontosaur-like teeth.
or knife-like serrated-shaped teeth of Jurassic Park T-Rexes were modified by the animatronics modeling team to make them look more menacing than the real thing. Believe it or not, this seemingly more frightening look ironically hinders the full bite force potential. Yes.
Yep. I said that.
Knife-like serrated teeth like those of the Giga and Carcharodontosaurus are better for slicing and shredding victims, so in theory, shouldn't these InGen T-Rex teeth have the ability to slice and shred like a carnosaur? To a degree, yes, but there's a reason why Carcharodontosaurid skulls look like this and not like this. For these knife-like teeth, but there's a reason why Carcharodontosaurid skulls
Planet Dinosaur Kakar's a little bit questionable. I'd use Mapusaurus instead.
Look like this, and not like this. For these knife-like teeth to work effectively, the shape of the skull and articulation on the jaw muscles made it easier for the Giga to open its mouth wider and snap down much quicker than any T-Rex could. Carnosaurs like the Giga would bite with rapid movements and cause lacerations and extremely bloody wounds. The actual T-Rex had a very different strategy. And Jurassic, as they normally do in this franchise, ended up nerfing Rexy's bite by mounting on the wrong teeth.
Yes. And that is why Spinosaurus Assa 87 actually shrugged off that bite.
The real T-Rex teeth are serrated and can lacerate flesh, but their more robust teeth are actually primarily built for piercing, gripping, and wrenching off chunks of meat. These may possibly be the culprit as to why most of the bites from an InGen T-Rex are easily shrugged off by rival predators. For a T-Rex, securing a firm hold is crucial. With an 8 to 10,000 psi bite force, teeth that slice through flesh this easily wouldn't really hold too well, but cut just fine. And yes, this will most definitely be painful. But the real T-Rex teeth, in contrast, are a different story. A 2005 study found that the optimal bite gap between 28 to 63 degrees would inflict the highest biting pressure around the latter part of the jaw. Biting on anything too wide would diminish bite force. And yes, this rule will apply to both T-Rexes. But for Sue, this wouldn't be a big deal. Remember, real T-Rex depth perception was superior, which allows it to pinpoint exactly where to bite and where it will be most effective. This gets worse.
And that is a feat that the Indominus 2.0 unfortunately doesn't have.
Another study showed that unlike other theropods, T-Rex teeth differed slightly across the maw. The teeth in front were for securing a firm grip where it will be most effective. This gets worse. Another study showed that unlike other...
I like this Monosaur trying to actually kick the Rex away.
Exactly where to bite and where it will be most effective. This gets worse. Another study showed that unlike other theropods,
the Monosaur should use its tail to whip at the Rex, though.
T-Rex teeth differed slightly across the maw. To land more hits, one well-targeted bite from Sue would be catastrophic. As soon as these teeth sink in, the only way to escape would be to leave a chunk of flesh behind. And be it a vital organ or vulnerable area, the opponent will most definitely be looking at a potential fatal injury. The real thing shows why nature's authentic product once again proves superior. For this category, Sue takes the edge for bite effectiveness. Part 9, Auxiliary Weapons. Apart from using their skull for inflicting lethal bites, and given that in this fight both of these combatants will be looking straight at each other for the majority of the fight, both animals will likely use their skulls as a form of blunt force weapon. Now, Tyrannosaurus Rex was not specialized for head bashing like Carcharodontosaurids, but they could manage some pretty respectable forces with their robust skulls and mass. The points of...
Well, despite that though, their skulls are more blunt than the Carcharodontosaurids. That means it's not going to be... That means... Hey, they may use some stuff.
Specialized for head bashing like Carcharodontosaurids, but they could manage some pretty respectable forces with their robust skulls and mass. The points of contact that we'll compare in this section will be the lacrimal and post-orbital bones, forming the brow ridge. One might think that these two Rexes have identical skulls, but just like animals today, not every skeleton is exactly the same. And this is the case with both the skulls of Sue and REXY. For REXY, we'll take impact surface area and speed into account. Forming a speculative reconstruction of her skull based on head shape, we see that her post-orbital bones are pointed, meaning the force will focus on a smaller area, yielding a higher PSI.
That means REXY is going to have... REXY's head skull is going to be less blunt. So that's cool.
By crunching these numbers into the impact force formula, we get an estimate of a hit that inflicts 11,000 PSI, assuming REXY was able to wind up enough speed and rammed the opponent perfectly. Committing to such blows does have risks, especially if striking another skull head-on. Instead, REXY would aim to hit a soft area such as the flank or ribcage.
But the thing is, Sue can blunt the damage because Sue is very bulky.
Causing bruising, or if Sue is caught off guard, fracturing some ribs. By comparison, Sue had a much more smoother skull compared to many tyrannosaurs. Even with any keratinous brow buildup, the point of contact would be spread along a wider area. Even factored in with her top running speed, this would still inflict lower damage forces than REXY. A more tenable strategy would be leveraging her faster rotation speed. This way, Sue would likely deploy head bashing, pivoting on her feet to swing aside to bludgeon if they can't land a bite. Doing so with optimal windup might produce forces of up to 4,500 psi over a wide area. Now, admittedly, both the 11,000 and 4,500 psi would happen under optimal circumstances. So, logically speaking, the final impact forces in a fight would be much lower. In order for this to be at all effective, Sue would have to use this maneuver to spar or even parry an incoming bite from REXY. This is extremely useful and may open a way for a counterattack, especially coming from an aggressive REXY. The edge for this category will be given to an animal that can inflict the most damage. If REXY does decide to wind up a charge with enough distance and actually lands a hit, the damage will be greater, weakening or bruising Sue if hit on the right spot. The numbers speak for themselves, and REXY's impact force is indeed greater. Whether Sue is able to reverse this or survive this impact remains to be seen, but for this category, REXY will take a clear edge when it comes to auxiliary weapons.
Okay, alright. I kind of expected that. REXY is going to have not sharper. REXY's skull is less blunt, to simply put it.
We are almost ready to unleash our combatants to the simulation, but first, the X Factor attribute.
The X Factor. Man, I rhymed exactly with GOJI.
Relentlessness will be taken into account. In this special edition of Monster Face-Off, we'll include this new attribute to explain something interesting that may or may not occur in this fight. In the real world, encounters between two apex predators tend to end with the loser retreating from the fight. No point in culminating a battle that was clearly lost.
Yep, no, and it's not really a samurai battle, guys. This is not a samurai battle. This is not World War II where you have to kamikaze, where you have to just keep on fighting to maintain your honor. This is survival of the fittest.
This was most likely the case back when a T-Rex encountered another T-Rex. In the past, carnivores absolutely could be brutal, but only to the same degree that they are now. A study on lion fatalities by George B. Scheller and a similar study of tigers found that same-species combat accounts for only 15% of adult fatality rates. This sounds like a lot, but that is actually lower than combat with other different species. Similarly, we can deduct that the vast majority of the fights between the two Rexes did not end in fatalities. Numerous healed injuries on the face of T-Rex skeletons are a testament to this. Not that they couldn't kill each other, they most certainly could.
But they don't really want to kill each other. That's the problem.
It's just that
anyway, let's continue on with this.
They didn't have to kill each other every time.
Oh.
Sounds like a lot, but that is actually lower than combat with other different species. Similarly, we can deduct that the vast majority of the fights between the two could. It's just that they didn't have to kill each other every time. InGen theropods, meanwhile, were anything but cautious, and self-preservation was something that wasn't kept in mind in most cases. Spinosaurus and Indominus are examples of borderline psychos when they get angry, and InGen T-Rex were no different. Almost every single time one of the T-Rex clones encountered another large theropod, they immediately go on the attack first. It makes sense that a lot of the promo material shown before Dominion's release categorized REXY with a very high aggression level. The moment any downed InGen T-Rex catches a second wind, they are right back on attack mode. Big Edie did something similar after recovering from the neck injury, rushing back to attack the Spino, and this happened here in Dominion.
Well, oh man. This is literally Indom 2.0. Indom 2.0 is gonna have basically nothing. Jeez. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely stupid.
After being driven back by the Giga in the first, they immediately go on the attack first.
Oh man, T-Rexes are just... It's more just to... whatchamacallit. It's more just Hollywood's way of getting some action. Getting a bunch of action dinosaur action. Hooray!
It makes sense that a lot of the promo material shown before Dominion's release categorized REXY with a very high aggression level. The moment any downed InGen T-Rex catches a second wind, they are right back on attack mode. Big Edie did something similar after recovering from the neck injury, rushing back to attack the Spino, and this happened here in Dominion. After being driven back by the Giga in the first skirmish, what does this aging REXY do? Travel through a burning forest, no heed towards any fire, to square up with a predator bigger, stronger, and much younger than her, and a
Man, why is it so funny? Is it because REXY is an idiot? It seems like an idiot. I don't really think REXY's an idiot. It's just that she's aggressive. She's more aggressive than the other.
Attack again. Why does this happen? And is there a way to explain what inevitably might happen in this face-off? The growth rate of InGen Tyrannosaurus might be partially responsible. REXY went from hatchling to full size in only a few years. By comparison, a natural T-Rex would usually take 18 to 20 years to grow to considerable size. A real T-Rex's size would plateau at a certain age, only growing very slowly, increasing bulk as years went by. REXY, in contrast, kept going at a steady pace in a very short time. This implies something strange going on with her pituitary gland. Maybe an intentional genetic alteration to try and quickly stock the first park with more impressive adults.
The only stuff I understand about pituitary gland in biology class is their usage in kidneys as well as in the menstruation cycle.
Dinosaurs, or
so you learn something new every day.
Have been an accident in the gene splicing phase. This gland in the brain is what controls and regulates growth, so disorders here can also affect the adrenal gland. This might explain the heightened aggression and higher than typical hunger response. This urge to attack regardless of anything and depression odds backed up by adrenal imbalances may work in favor of REXY. Similarly, a more calmed approach and self-preservation may also kick in after. We are now ready to reveal which T-Rex will crown itself with the coveted title of Tyrant Queen. Jurassic's REXY wins the edge in having superior reach, faster running speed, and auxiliary weapons. Sue, in her imposing form, wins the edge in overall mass, agility, senses, experience, and bite effectiveness. Both prove to be intelligent combatants thanks to feats seen on screen and evidence from the fossil record. Today's T-Rexes will see each other for the first time alongside the plains and forests of the Hell Creek Formation.
Hell Creek Formation, Sue is already going to have a little bit of an unfair advantage. So, if I were to go for REXY v Sue, I'd honestly just go for another area. Like, just a random plains area. It's not Isla Nublar, it's not Hell Creek Formation, it's just a random area.
Is set. The combatants are ready. Coming up, Jurassic Park's REXY versus Sue, the Tyrant Queen.
Two Tyrannosaurs. The occurrence of fatality will heavily depend on which combatant wins the encounter. Sue just eating an Allosaurus. Oh, the booming encounters. Sue would actually notice REXY. Sue would actually notice a booming encounter. Notice REXY. So that is already REXY's weakness. It's just being extremely loud would alert anything nearby. There's REXY. Sue actually notices REXY first. Okay, REXY. No, REXY's not an idiot, alright? She is capable of very smart maneuvers. I'd honestly not have REXY being reckless. Instead, Sue... Oh, Sue has lips! Sue pivots and REXY, I would make REXY a little bit taller than... Okay. REXY's longer and taller. We'll stick with this. There's another guy who tried to debunk GOJI Center's video by applying a bunch of power scaling. We're also going to be reviewing that. REXY shouldn't be this reckless, alright? REXY should plan ahead. REXY shouldn't really be portrayed as an idiot over here. It seems like REXY isn't really getting the respect she deserves in this particular scenario. Of course, I'm trying to apply logic, and I'm not trying to go for power scaling, so... It's not like, what can destroy what, and what that... I don't like power scaling, it's just not good. It's just... Power scaling is not a very good metric when it comes to determining battles. I mean, a bunch of times, when I create those polls, I want to use logic, not power scaling. I feel like REXY is just not being treated with respect she deserves once again. Gonna rip REXY's tail off like that. Mother of the product of Mother Nature reigns supreme this time. Sue actually won here. Here's the problem with this fight. REXY isn't really doing any smart maneuvers at all. Because of her, her aggression is played just too directly, and I don't think REXY would be this reckless. I think REXY would still want to use whatever terrain to her advantage. Then again, this is already not really a fair battle, given that Sue is already accustomed to her environment in the Hell Creek Formation. Meanwhile, REXY isn't. So that is a big problem about this fight. Still a good, very well animated fight though.
In this battle simulation, it was Sue who came out victorious in this fight. For the first time ever in Monster Face-Off, the winner of the fight did not inflict the killing blow. This is because, as was usual in territorial dispute, the defeated dinosaur would rather take off instead of culminating an already determined loss.
Why, Rex?
Had REXY won this encounter, the end result might have been different. So, why did Sue win? Both REXY and Sue did win the edge in important attributes, But the factors that carried more weight in this particular battle were a combination of mass, senses, experience, and bite effectiveness. This battle began with both T-Rexes being able to detect each other from far away. Both Sue and Rexy did know where a very large predator was lurking about in the same area. It was Sue, however, who managed to stealthily find Rexy first, startling her into an aggressive encounter. Rexy, as usual, would have been the first aggressor.
Yes. And literally, so, or a bunch of in-gen versus real-life stuff, they're going to be first aggressors. As long as they're predators, because herbivores are just defenseless meat sacks, according to InGen.
Sue, in contrast, would have been looking to settle this dispute in a non-violent manner. But Rexy isn't wired like she is. This fight escalated a little too quickly. Upon charging, the quicker Rexy attempts to strike first. What should have been an initial bite turned into a missed headbutt into the flank and thigh of Sue, who with her greater agility managed to switch lanes and avoid the first bite. Sue's maneuverability now places her in a position to bite a quickly moving Rexy, managing to bite and tear off a small chunk of flesh from the tail. Fully engaged in combat, Sue now targets the caudofemoralis muscle in an attempt to
Caudofemoralis, okay.
handicap the quicker opponent.
I call him Caudofemoralis, but this is
Rexy, on the other hand, just now ran
so. But GOJI Center does commit some mistakes over here, which is fine.
into a short.
It's still definitely above average. Especially when it comes to others like Brightside and all of that, because they just do basically nothing to salvage whatever bad paleo videos they do. GOJI Center actually tries to apply logic.
Shorter but agile T-Rex. For her, it was as if she ran into a wall. After another wrestling match, Rexy's longer reach and more bladed teeth managed to inflict some nasty cuts on Sue, but it was only a matter of time before Sue managed to hit something that mattered. After missing the caudofemoralis for the second time due to her shorter reach, she quickly opts for a proportionally longer arm of Rexy, wrenching it off. After this type of injury, this is where a T-Rex territorial dispute would likely end. Any other T-Rex would back off at this point, but this isn't just any other T-Rex.
Rexy. We're also using Prime Rexy, by the way.
This is Rexy we're talking about.
That may explain her unusual aggressiveness, recklessness, and therefore not really capable of using her intelligence, because this is Prime Rexy and not Old Rexy in Dominion.
So it will take a bit more to turn her away. Unable to reach the locomotive muscles, Sue now resorts to yet another common attack maneuver against other T-Rexes, a bite to the head. With Sue's stronger teeth dug deep in her skull, and Rexy never in her life feeling anything like this, she decides that enough is enough and breaks for it. Sue, however, is not finished. Now with her primary target in range, Sue now grabs a good hold of Rexy's tail. Once a T-Rex bites its teeth into something, it's just as good as lost. Rexy, in desperation and already with her mind set on retreating, leaves her tail behind. Sue, upon witnessing Rexy walk away, does not pursue. The point has most definitely been made, and Rexy will never enter this territory again.
And Rexy is literally affected, as you can see here. The tail is gone, and Rexy will become the next Y-Rex.
Years of paleontological study on the most popular dinosaur of all time constantly remind us of how biology and years of evolution brought forth the perfect killing machine. A perfect balance of raw strength, agility, and brains. The product of nature itself once again proves to be second to none. Far superior than the tampered product of mankind.
As you can see here. And that is it. Credits. Tyrannosaurus Sue Eofauna. As you can see here, this video does have a little bit of flaws. But in the end, it's still well above average when it comes to these paleontology videos and paleontology battles. And Megadinosaurs should take notes on how to make at least a decent battle. Because some of them are just outright unfair. Some of them are just outright stupid. Like the T-Rex versus Saur Faggot Axe thing, it's just completely dumb. But let's see what the power scaling community has to. Linking this video in the description. As you can see here, Rexy and Sue over here. We're going to be trying to listening to whatchamacallit.
Fiction versus reality, and why GOJI Center is never, ever going to be fully honest. So, is it really a one-sided beatdown? Is it closer than we think?
It would probably be... It's not really Sue... Sue will win, but will probably win with difficulty. A lot of difficulty.
There misinformation presented on all sides? The answer to all of these questions is
likely high difference.
Primarily yes.
High difficulty.
And not the way you think. So, let's first tackle the basic subject. How large are our subjects? Consistently speaking, REXY the t.rex is depicted at anywhere from 18 to 20 feet tall, with the lowest statements of her size being 15 to 16 feet tall. It's unknown at what part of the body they're measuring, to be fair. However, I think we can confidently say that if we're talking about Dominion, that the higher estimates are more likely. This is because she is fairly in scale with the 22-foot tall Giganotosaurus.
22 feet high Giga from Jurassic World Dominion. Obviously, it's going to be fiction. I mean, this guy acknowledges that Rexy over here, stuff here, Giga over here, they're fiction.
Rexy is notably smaller, but if she were only 15 feet, there would be a much bigger size gap between the two.
Okay, fair enough.
For example, a 13...
Hold up. How tall is the Giga from Jurassic? So replicated specimen, hold up. The replicated specimen, 5.5 meters, 18 feet. Length 15.5 meters, weight of 9 tons. Okay, that is also replicated, by the way. That also just says replicated. Actually, now that I think about it, GOJI Center is probably more correct on that matter.
15-foot T-Rex against a 20-foot tall Giga, the lowest statements for his size, would look something...
I'm not too sure about that.
Thing like this. Yeah, that's the size gap we're talking about, folks. Anyway, her length is anywhere from 40 to 45 feet long, up to 14 meters. Her weight is, of course, the
height. The not really good thing about this is that we're using... This looks like a game, which doesn't really translate well to Rexy herself.
Consistent attribute, considering she's been getting heavier and heavier over the years, including in skinny states, like in Fallen Kingdom. Her lowest estimate in Jurassic World is 8.4 metric tons. However, we have a more direct and canon estimate weight from Colin Trevorrow himself, the person who made all 3 Jurassic World films, citing Rexy's size as 6.2 meters tall, 14.4 meters long.
Size should be determined by mass, not length or height. It's that comfortably drawn at 6.2 meters tall and 14 meters long. Okay. By the way, I don't think power scaling should be used as a medium. No, I don't think power scaling should be used as the main metric for who would win in a fight. I think power scaling could be a good medium if used properly, and sometimes it can probably work and apply a bunch of stuff. The thing about this channel is that, from what I've seen, this channel focuses more on power scaling, and using power scaling more than GOJI Center, which GOJI Center uses more logic and realism.
And a body weight of 9.6 metric tons. Sue the T-Rex has a number of IRL estimates and weights based on the method used. GDI gets us about an 8-ton Sue, volumetric estimates get us a 9 to 10-ton Sue, and there have been many differences in between. Rexy has quite a comfortable size advantage, but as I've just covered, comfortable size advantage.
I wouldn't say size advantage, I'd say just height and length advantage. That's really it for Rexy, though.
But as I
Rexy could... Now, I challenge GOJI Center to reanimate the whole thing. But with Rexy being much taller, as stated by this guy, even though power scaling isn't really great, it's power scaling... The power scaling community is... I'm not trying to send hate towards it. I probably should use power scaling a little bit more, but I'm on team realism, team logic, more times than power scaling. No offense to this guy, though. And I do respect this guy's opinion on... This guy's take on power scaling.
I've just
Sue and Rexy
covered last week,
does size really matter in combat? The answer for me, in my opinion, yes. Because, really though, T-Rex versus Giga versus Kakarodontosaurus
isn't everything. What about...
I know, but it's when it comes to stuff like... Whatchamacallit? I can't really think of a battle where an absurdly light character wins against an absurdly heavy character.
Strength, speed, durability, and all other combat attributes. Speed is the easiest one
Durability is the bulk.
to get done. A recent paper on the speed of Tyrannosaurus Rex found that a 9.5-ton Sioux could move at a maximum of 10.1 meters per second, or about 20 miles per hour, at the absolute maximum.
17 miles per hour, alright.
Rexy speed has been consistently stated to be 32 miles per hour, even in her enclosure.
Yes, Rexy is definitely faster than Sue.
How fast are they? Well, we clocked the T-Rex to 32 miles an hour.
T-Rex?
She's also able to keep pace with the 35 mile per hour Indominus Rex and 30 mile per hour Giga in Dominion. So Rexy very comfortably takes the speed category too.
Yes, and GOJI Center even admits that Rexy is faster. But I guess this guy, okay.
Well, since these two are at least equal in weight, Rexy is much taller, faster, and if we're going to refer to agility, I mean, come on. We've seen how these things move in the movies.
See how things move in the movies. Hey, don't really turn around though.
Real dinosaurs were significantly more stiff.
But studies shown by the T-Rex Ilias stuff in like 2019 or so, I forgot, just shows that T-Rex is more agile than most other predators in its weight class.
And while T-Rex was definitely the most agile megatheropod, in absolute terms compared to the movie creatures, come on, let's not kid ourselves here. This category is not even close. Rexy takes it with ease.
Not even close. I don't really know here. I don't exactly know. Alright. I'm not trying to flame this guy, alright? I can't really think of any statements. I can't really think of any commentary that does not sound like flaming this guy and blindly following a Sue. It's just
intelligence/experience. The real T-Rex seem to fight all the time. Most of them have injuries of some kind or another, either from prey or from other T-Rex. Rexy has 30 years of experience on the island.
Let's see here. Rexy is not even an enclosure. Okay.
Battling other creatures, primarily.
And GOJI Center left out one thing, is that Rexy was actually free in Jurassic Park. And it's likely that Rexy could have still been free. And Rexy could have gone after a bunch of other bigger predators of her environment. So in terms of experience, I don't think GOJI Center got it 100% correct.
Prey animals that can actually fight back against her, like Triceratops and sauropods, but very few large carnivore fights. However, something to note is that Rexy seems to adapt in battle quickly, likely faster than the real animal would be able to, such as changing her strategy against the Indominus Rex when having a few seconds reprieve after a beating, or how she kept changing up her tactics to try to fight the Giganotosaurus. Didn't work, however, because the Giga is a 13.6 ton, 18.5 meter, 22 foot tall Goliath that can shrug off T-Rex bites like nothing, showing that even with all these attributes Rexy has, a gap in strength can certainly dominate her in battle. But would the real animal be capable of such? Now for the category that all the size nerds are going to cry about. It applies mostly to durability too, but strength. Honestly, where should I even start? We could talk about bite strength, lifting strength, striking strength, and of course, this will be the most important category in the fight. Let's start with Sue first. The real Tyrannosaurus Rex is a very powerful animal, in excess of 1,000 kilos, and that its neck could support at least 1.3 to 1.6 metric tons. Scaling this up for Sue, who is about 1.4 times bigger, this means that Sue's head and neck alone could comfortably hold up to about 3 tons. Her body for leverage, it would be significantly higher. However, Rexy was confidently able to lift and even throw the bare minimum 6, if not 10.
I wouldn't really call it lifting though. I would call it, I would call it just throwing the Indom around. Trying to throw the Indom around. It's not really lifting when what you're doing is not really lifting at all.
0.5 metric ton Indominus Rex over her head in a weakened state, and she's only going to be used at her peak performance. So I don't see why you'd use the volcano poisoned Fallen Kingdom Rexy or just generally weaker Jurassic World Rexy. The fact she was also able to compete fiercely with the Indominus Rex speaks to her strength, as this same hybrid dinosaur is able to do things that real animals are simply not capable of, such as shrugging off about half the explosive power.
And the thing is that these animals are modified to have thick hides. Probably modified to have thicker hides than IRL.
Of an AT-4 rocket launcher, taking machine gun fire with little damage.
That is the Indominus, though. So, but I can't really say the same about Rexy, though. It's the Indominus Rex was able to shrug off because of her thick hide and all that, thick armor and all. Not really thick armor, but like...
ripping through multiple meter-wide pieces of metal as if they were made of cardboard. And
yeah, this is my main gripe about power scaling. This is my main gripe about power scaling. It's just they don't really use as much logic as I'd hope.
even pulling up a 50-meter zipline tower.
This is because the Indominus... Would Rexy be capable of doing that? Would Sue actually be capable of doing that? I think Sue could be capable of doing that too.
This tower would weigh roughly about 87 tons, and Indominus could pull that with just her head and neck. When engaging with Rexy in bite-to-bite combat, Indominus was losing.
Indominus was losing at the start because she tried to communicate with Rexy. Not because of her just battle instincts and all that. Not really battle instincts. It's just Indominus did not get the first bite off because she was trying to communicate with Rexy. So...
jaws that can crunch through multiple feet of metal were unable to do significant damage to Rexy's throat in their battle. It hurt. But since Indominus is so powerful, the fact Rexy basically shrugged off this bite and then delivered some of her own speak to how monstrously overpowered she is. Some may protest because of online, unpeer-reviewed, higher weight estimates for Sue.
But we're not using Sue. But we're not using stuff like Cope and Goliath. We're just using Sue.
However, if you are to do that sort of method, then we would also have to equally use unverified online weight estimates for REXY, such as putting her CGI model into the Blender software and calculating its volume. And the GOJI Center fans shouldn't mind this because they did the same thing with the giant skullcrawler. So let's keep the same energy, boys and girls. If we do that for REXY, she comes out to an impressive...
That's why I said GOJI Center. That's why I think GOJI Center is just a flawed channel despite their good, whatchamacallit. Despite their generally accurate stuff, they still fall behind in terms of just special paleontology specialism.
25 cubic meters.
I'm not trying to flex over here. I know I'm not really the best at paleontology either, but I'm willing to learn, and GOJI Center also needs to learn.
And with a theropod body density of about 0.95, this means that REXY would weigh well over 20 tons. So if you are going to bring up higher online estimates for Sue, we have to do the same for REXY, which significantly widens the size gap. This calculation would also be consistent by the fact that other people have gotten Indominus Rex to about 25 tons, and the Giganotosaurus to over 30 tons by the same method. Indominus Rex with a single head...
I like the Jurassic Park built arena music though. It is definitely a nostalgic addition. It's definitely a nostalgic part of the video.
But is able to punch through the polycarbonate fiberglass aviary with the same material, inverse being able to withstand at least small arms fire. Indominus Rex also shrugged off a shotgun to her tongue. She was able to bring down 20-ton apatosaurs in quick succession.
Partly because these apatosaurs are just defenseless meat sacks that don't know how to defend themselves and just wait for the carnivores to just mutilate them and they just collapse.
As well as a 40-ton Brachiosaurus.
CC clips got claimed, okay.
Very quickly. Probably through use of her camouflage, since she was camouflaged right after this, but the point remains. REXY's also able to battle to some extent with the much larger and stronger Giganotosaurus, who can bring down Dreadnoughtus by himself. While he is significantly more powerful than REXY, she was able to withstand a good number of his attacks and harm him to some extent. When she did bite down on his nose, he made a sound of pain, even though she didn't inflict any damage. Though to be fair, the scene is very dark, so maybe she did actually do something to him. REXY herself should compare to other T-Rexes like Buck, who could easily smash through a bus as if it were a soda can.
Buck is smaller than REXY. So power scaling REXY can, okay.
Also stated...
Okay, this is one of those cases where power scaling actually makes sense. So, because in this particular scenario, if we apply that logic, and if we applied that logic, Buck is, when Buck can destroy something, REXY most likely can too. This is one of those cases where power scaling is good.
To crunch through buses herself, and her bite force has...
Age late Cretaceous. That is 85 to 70 million years ago, which is a bit questionable.
And her bite force has consistently higher estimates than it does lower ones. Jurassic World has this weird habit of citing an...
The problem is her teeth, though. And Tyrannosaurus teeth... REXY was given Cockrodontosaur-like teeth.
Unimpressive bite force metric from the real T-Rex, 37,500 newtons. The real T-Rex consistently gets higher than this, although there are some papers that do cite this as a lower bound estimate.
I wouldn't use 35,000 newtons as the estimate for REXY. Not REXY, Sue.
However, 48, 57, and even 63,000 newton estimates are not uncommon for real Rexes, especially Sue. One could argue this would give Sue an advantage
Man, pronated risks, that is a bit questionable. And there's also usage of Tarbosaurus, the mightiest ever.
in bite force.
Prehistoric, you could use these prehistoric planet.
However, it's not so simple, as we do directly have higher estimates for REXY, such as being 10 times more powerful than the bite.
That's Jurassic World of Game music. Jurassic World of Game. Yay. Although Tyrannosaurus was not as massive as Enormous Rex, had thicker teeth and a much more powerful bite.
Force of an alligator. The American alligator has consistently recorded bite force metrics of 9,000 to 13,000 newtons. 10 times that well surpasses the real T-Rex. And of course, this is also ignoring the fact REXY is able to bite through the bulletproof Indominus Rex and is stated to have the strongest theropod bite force in the verse. This means she has a stronger bite than the Indominus Rex, the Giganotosaurus, the Spinosaurus, every big theropod, which means she would...
The problem is how she could apply her teeth, how she could apply her bone-crushing bite, not really the bite force itself. And REXY has Cocarodontosaur-like teeth that hinders her ability to deliver her bone-crushing bite.
Easily outperformed the Giganotosaurus's bite of crunching through solid metal, Indominus doing the same, and also punching through bulletproof glass like styrofoam.
Okay, that is another good power scaling example. To be fair.
So,
Power scaling, when used in terms of logic, is very good. But power scaling beyond logic is just... This is where I draw the line.
we can consistently prove that REXY takes pretty much every category against the real animal, no matter how you look at it. Whether or not you use higher feats or not kinda doesn't matter. REXY's bigger, faster, stronger, more adaptable, and honestly, I don't even know how the real Rex would fight REXY. I mean, if we put the two side by side, like, yeah, Sue can bite onto maybe Rex's chest and arms, maybe her stomach, her calf probably, but the sheer scale difference means that REXY can just bite onto the back of Sue's neck, or even her spine. Now, even if you did dishonestly put REXY at the same or smaller scale than Sue, I still don't really think it would matter, even if you try to ignore the higher feats. Because REXY is literally twice as fast. So even if you were to try it...
REXY is twice as fast, but would speed really matter in terms of a combat between two T-Rexes? I don't think so. I don't think that is the primary factor here. It's more so the ability to leverage its bite.
If you were to try make REXY smaller to like real Rex size, the fact she's still twice as fast, clearly more agile, and loves to throw her weight around in a fight, I just don't really...
But would Sue do the same? That's the question. Sue would likely do the same.
see how the real animal could really do anything about that, especially since REXY does have those huge snaggle teeth and goes right for the throat on the Indominus Rex. She does go for Giga's throat too, but he just outmuscles her in every way, so she can't get the chance. Most T-Rex fighting seems to be based on biting the face. There are neck bites, of course, but they seem to be a lot less common than face biting. And the reason why this speed would be important is because if we're talking about kinetics and thus strength, REXY can move not only her own enormous body extremely quickly, but also while wrangling with other huge things. She literally does not slow down at all when moving the enormous Giga with her jaws. And considering he is the biggest Jurassic Park theropod by far, it's not really a surprise. Shit, even in the script, REXY was 25 feet tall. Hollywood made a monster.
This is a good video, all things considered. Both videos are definitely good in their own right. However, the main problem I have with this video is that this guy relies a bit too much on power scaling. to the point where this guy is using power scaling as really the base of whatever is going on here. Which, to be clear, this is not bad. This is not really a power scaling is not a bad metric at all. But the problem is that if you disregard logic when it comes to power scaling, it becomes a bad thing. Which is where a whole bunch of more inexperienced or power scalers who use less logic, that they fall under that category of these wins just don't really make sense. Like when it comes to whatchamacallit, let's see. Can I think of one battle? Can you guys send me one battle in which, in logic, a real animal will win, but in power scaling, a fictional animal will win? Because literally, as one comment said, I'm gonna look for it. Let's see. Hold on. Our scalers really hate fun, huh? And then there's this guy over here, Nyan Cat Pop Tart 5441. GOJI Center enjoys trying to be realistic as possible. This channel has to go in depth with powerful feats the characters have done. Basically, REXY would not do well in the real world. Sue would not do well in the fictitious real Jurassic franchise world. That person is literally stating facts. I think we're also going to be linking this person's channel in the description, because we use the guy's comments.
I mean, I don't know how you argue for the real animal. No matter what way you slice it, Jurassic Park's dinosaurs are just too big, fast, and strong. And REXY would win with ease.
And that's the end of the video. So, overall, this battle is extremely heated. It is an extremely heated debate. I actually did a poll that has 4,800 votes. And it's now just become a hot pot for the team logic and team power scaling to just flame towards each other. Send flame towards each other. Which is just not really what I want. I don't want my channel to be known for hate. I want my channel to be known for trying to be educational and all that. And I really don't want anyone to... I don't really want anyone to just flame each other for using the wrong thing to measure their power. I want my comment section to be civil. That's it. Again, my stance is that I prefer logic more over power scaling. I prefer realism over power scaling. That is why I'm going to stick with GOJI Center. This is GOJI Center's point of view. But I do agree that they have got a bunch of flaws in their video. Sue wins high difficulty. That's it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you on the next one.